Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignot, CEO of the experience agency The Flash. Each episode, I bring on a different business leader who's doing some game changing work. And as we're in this really unique time of the pandemic, it's fascinating to talk to really unique leaders who oftentimes you wouldn't get a chance to get hold of because they're always traveling. And our guest today is just like that. So I'm so excited to have Jeremiah Owyang. He's a tech analyst and founder and brilliant guy. We're going to talk about how he got to where he is right now. We're going to talk about Spartan Race and how he got to be where he is today. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Jeremiah.
Hey, Laura.
How's it going?
It's going well in pandemic, quarantine, wildfire world.
It's just, world to world. Not big deal. Not big deal at all.
Yeah. We got to be flexible and nimble, right?
Exactly. Even though we are in the middle of a crazy pandemic and all trapped inside, the podcast does not change, and the first question does not change. And so, Jeremiah, what was your first job?
Do you mean like in high school, like working, or like my career job? Need some clarity there.
You can pick anyone you want.
Well, I would say, my very first job was, stocking shelves at a retailer, like, a pharmacy type, box. And that really was horrible. And that really taught me that I should focus on school. So every job, I actually wrote this down, like every job taught me one important lesson. And that was certainly one of the lessons is I certainly wanted to be focused on business strategy.
See, there you go. So it's funny, like I said, 150 odd episodes to date, and every single person, whenever I ask this question, the first job that pops into their head, like either goes, hey, I never want to do that again. So whatever job I got, I didn't want to do that thing again. Or I learned something really interesting about myself that has like carried me throughout my life. And so you see,
both. Yeah, both.
So there you go. Business strategy. So after you despise all things stocking shelves, like how did you get to be sitting here talking to me from your airstream in California?
Sure. Well, that was a long time ago.
But you're only 12, Jeremiah.
Yeah, right. So I'm middle-aged male, family, kids, I'm quote midway through said career. And I do work right now. I'm in this metal tube, an airstream. It's kind of like a plane. And I got this because my children are very young and they're screaming. And I made this decision years before the pandemic when it was not acceptable to have kids screaming or running in the background. So maybe if I had to work at home now and that was a new decision, I may not need said device. But it's a business write-off, and I did all the calculations, so that was part of it. But my day job is I run a tech company along with two other fabulous women, and we are doing market research for large companies, tech analysis. And I've been doing this type of work for way over a decade, and I was a co-founder at some other firms, and then got my chops at some well-known research firms. So the reason why I exist in my career is I found a career mission, and I figured this out when I was around 27, I believe. I want to help companies connect to their customers using new technologies. And that's really been the thread and the requirement and the gate for me to do any companies or projects or the types of companies I want to work with.
Wow. So what was the thing at 27 that you're like, this is what I want to do?
It was before I discovered that wonderful diagram that's been passed around the internet a few years ago called Ikigai, the Japanese art of living. And really you look at what are you good at, what do you love to do, and what do you get paid for? And there's another one, does the world need it? But if you get paid for it, I actually think the world probably mostly in most cases needs it. So I just figured out that's what I love to do. And this is what I got hired to do at different companies. And so I just started to blog about how companies are connecting with their customers using new technologies. That's the mission. And I've penned almost 3,000 posts over 15 years. And my blog was really important. It's less important now. People don't read blogs as often. they seem to be on newsletters and Clubhouse and other things like that.
Substack.
Yes, Substack, exactly, and whatever, whatever other tool emerges. So yeah, I just started to talk about that, and there was a rash of new technologies, which you were tracking as well, right? In Web 2.0 in that world, and that was kind of my claim to fame.
And so, all right, so you do this now. You have this really awesome company. What made you decide to like go out and do this on your own and be this voice that everyone kind of knows Jeremiah in the tech industry as like almost an oracle in some ways. Like, how did
It's
that
going a little
happen?
far.
How'd that
Thank
happen?
you. You're being way too kind. There are many fantastic people who I stand upon the shoulders of and build off their work and their ideas as well. So I don't want to claim any type of oracle status, but thank you all the same. I just was really passionate about it and just put in the time to pen those posts and conduct the research and do the surveys and just to get data. And it was wonderful. And it brought me to different stages at conferences. Remember those things, conferences?
I what? What are those? I feel like I had a connection to them. I may have produced a
I
couple.
know you
Uh,
have.
no,
And,
maybe,
and
just
it's
maybe.
a half a year, right, since we've really done this now. And so, I've had to change my strategy and I, make content here from my own backyard and try to connect in different ways and get to be on fabulous podcasts like this one. So, to answer your question is pulling together the data, deriving insights, making recommendations, and publishing it. And I was trying to publish as much as I could and still do in public, which is a wonderful way to build, your sales and marketing pipelines, is to be an attractor by sharing as much as possible.
And so, obviously, as someone who's in it right now and obviously has a unique POV, what trends are you seeing? Because obviously, we're all in this work from home model, and it's crazy for us all. Uh, but what do you think brands are doing right, and what do you think brands are kind of doing wrong right now?
It's really hard to say any brand is like doing it just amazing. But so basically, the veneer has been pulled off everything, right? From social inequality to social justice to do brands really have good products or not? Were they digitally enabled or not? Like we all know now, because if you failed at any of those things I just said, we know. So I feel like they hadn't really done anything new during the last 6 months. We just can see who they really are. Let's take one company that has done a fabulous job before the pandemic and it's carried forward is Peloton. They were already innovating and already building new products, and now they're rolling out even more products because their existing mainstay product, the bike, was sold out for months at a time. And
Tell me about
are
it.
you Peloton
I
zealot?
want to buy one, but like I live in a studio in Manhattan, so I need to get a bigger apartment so that I can actually fit it.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
I will get
mm-hmm.
one because like
Yeah,
I I saw, it is, I did the math,
yep.
and I saw the new one that has the bigger screen that sort of is on a cantilever mount that can turn
And
out,
it
spin
rotates.
out.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
and I
yep.
was like, oh wait a minute, this solves all the things I do because like I think I've mentioned to you, I do like the beach body on demand workout.
Perfect.
And I do it off my iPad because I don't have it on my TV. I just do it off my iPad. So when you think about it, it's like, well, wait a minute. If I have the bike and I already have the courses, then this is one stop shopping because this isn't going away. Like we're gonna be in this for another year, and we have to work out. Otherwise, we'll all be eating Cheetos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, it's fascinating because like the switch with Peloton is that like they went from that horrible ad during the holidays, where they got dragged for sexism
Dinged pretty hard. Yep.
and then made the shift to sort of be the brand that right off the bat offered that 90-day free trial, which I shared, I think, everywhere. And so many of my girlfriends were like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I bought a Peloton off of doing that
Wow.
because they realized like they capped like it was a really interesting correlation of when freemium to purchase also is like the right moment, whereby if you gave me this for 90 days for free, by day 28, people were
You're hooked.
buying.
Yep.
Yeah.
They should have used your services before deploying that ad, though. But their products are right? But their products are innovative. But I think they've learned from their advertising missteps. So that's just one example of a digitally enabled company, right? That was already primed to innovate, and they've done extremely well. Obviously, a lot of that is circumstantial, right? I'm sure there are some very amazing digital gyms that you go walk to, drive to, that
Hmm.
are fantastic, but in the world, there's really nothing they can do. They can just sit there and burn costs. So that's kind of my answer is that these companies were either ready or not.
And for the companies that are not, do you see any that are like they may have missed the boat initially, but they're making some good steps? Or
Hmm.
any advice you'd have for some companies to be like, here's how you can like begin to catch up at this moment?
Yes. So in many cases, companies are restructuring their product mix and repackaging them. I'm seeing this both in tech and as well as traditional companies. And this is a much easier thing to do than to innovate like a company like we just talked about. And so numerous companies have done that. For example, even cloud-based companies, some of them would package up e-commerce, chatbots, and AI to help retailers, get online faster. Their customer base as retailers. Obviously, we know companies like our mutual friend Ben Parr and Octane, where I'm an investor, which enables e-commerce. They're killing it. They're doing a great job. That's very helpful for the retailers. And then I also see other companies that, yeah, I don't know, it's innovating. They're just quickly morphing, like Home Depot, Lowe's. They're quickly changing things up for curbside delivery. But none of that, or contactless payment, none of that stuff is new.
Yeah,
It's
been
just they're
here.
just moving a lot faster. So, are we seeing anything new? I'd say that the newest thing that we see, but it wasn't adopted, has been apps like contact tracing by Google and Apple trying to partner. So, I'm seeing a lot of reshuffling of the products and repackaging, Laura.
It's fascinating because I think so many companies were like, "Oh my God, this is a pandemic," and then it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, how do we adapt? And like, there are things that are already in place. When I think about a clear when you were having clear and how people were originally like, why would I ever want this thing? I've got, TSA pre-check. And you're like, wait, one more reason I don't have to actually talk to people and go anywhere near? Perfect. I'm all about this. So all the kind of get away from me products are the ones that are now going to begin to grow because we literally don't
Hmm.
want to talk to or engage with people. But do you also think it's gonna change customer behavior? Because people are gonna be like, "Yeah, I just don't wanna talk to folks anymore," and versus, "I do still need this kind of spirit of community with others."
It's going to be a mixture, this hybrid. Um, so I have a study that will be announced um, very soon. I think maybe by the time this podcast publishes, I don't know when we're going to do it. But we looked at even how people are going to be working at home, and hybrid is probably where it's going to happen. I mean, many offices are shuttering permanently. Some are going to reopen, and some say you only need to come back into work 1 or 2 days a week. By the way, that is based upon the surveys that we've done. And so people still have a desire to connect to each other. And I was partnered with Ring Central, and they sponsored me to do this research, and we surveyed 4,000 workers, and we know that group work is suffering among people, and they want to be back together. And beyond knowledge workers doing group work, that spans over to people still want to go back and do workouts in group classes. Peloton is great, but you can see they're emulating social features with the leaderboards, the live
Mhm.
video, the high fives. We are social creatures, and we want to connect, and we want to go out. I mean, it's pretty obvious people want to connect. You can see the transmissions of the virus are happening when people are physically connecting. We cannot stop it because it is just innate in our own existing behaviors. So, but I think we can reset. Like, how often do we? Is it compulsory that we need to be with each other? No, it doesn't. We should do it when it makes sense. So I think that those are the big changes we're going to be seeing. But that's still a ways off, way over a year.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this in the events world because I get asked, I think weekly now, "When can we do a live event?" And I'm like, "Next fall, maybe." And like the
Exactly.
sheer terror of the of folks on their face, I'm like, "Listen, and when we do them next fall, they will be smaller, more bespoke, probably outdoor, and on the ground level. if they have to be inside the
Maybe more
building.
premium, right? In
Oh,
order to
super
cover that.
premium.
Right.
Everything's gonna be more premium because because everyone's gonna do a cost benefit analysis. Okay, what is it worth to me, my family, and people I care about for me to go to this thing? Is it really important for me to meet this particular individual in person versus over Zoom? And what is it
Additionally, the
about this?
costs increase for safety as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've already instituted this thing called, the COVID contingency, for some folks, because we actually do have a quote unquote live event for next fall that we just signed on board, but
A
like I
whole year
threw
away.
a whole year away, because the idea is that like hopefully by then this will work, and it's going to be in multiple cities and it's global. So we're hoping the rest of the world kind of also comes back to life. But the thing was that we said to them is like, listen, you now have to pay for massive insurance. You now have to pay for PPE, what's called a COVID manager. I talked to my friend. I have a very good
What's
friend who's an
that?
epidemiologist. What's what?
COVID
Oh, COVID.
manager.
So COVID manager is making sure everyone gets tested. What the supplies are for with regard to
Health and safety.
PPE. So they're kind of a health and safety QA
Yeah.
person that's going to be on board. Basically, we took this from what folks are doing for film crews, and so like basically the same level of
Right.
security that a film crew is doing now has to be on events, but you have to sort of double and triple the size because it can't just be, because your level of liability goes up so high. Like as someone who produces events, I always made the joke that I dream in insurance. And so because I'm like, I have to think of every, yeah, because I have to think of every terrible thing that could happen when we're doing any kind of event that's huge and outside of a place that you would expect, like a regular venue, like any outdoor venues or anything that was around the world or was in a bunch of unique places happening simultaneously.
That's going to be a
Uh,
new profession.
yeah, it's going to be a job like this COVID. I mean, this is what's happening with film crews in LA and Atlanta right now, where this person's job is to make sure everyone has been tested, where facilitating all the testing results, communicating that to all the lead people on staff, and also unfortunately sometimes being the heavy, being like you cannot come if you have not, you haven't followed these protocols. And it is, it's sanctioned by the union with regard to the film crews, but same premise. Like you gonna have to have that person be in charge of all of that. And, you know, so the idea of like getting people back together versus the risk behind it is going to be, a dramatic conversation that happens for every single company who wants to go back live. And what are you going to build that's going to make
Mhm.
someone want to actually go through this? Like it can't just be for Coachella, really. Like it's like you can sit home and watch Beyonce. Like I don't need to go in person.
That's got to be premium. So I was a speaker at a remote and hybrid events, and the dates that you said second half of 2021 is what they surveyed event managers with. So that is exactly the same data I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's and smaller, more bespoke, far more premium. Like I see where you're going to be doing much more retreat type things, where it's it could be somewhere in the Caribbean, not Tulum anymore because that's gotten overrun. But
We might see
again,
hybrid too. Like some events might pipe in a video stream for others to watch at just a fourth of the cost.
oh yeah, I think that's where you're probably also going to see some special on-demand features where okay, as a result of you're coming as someone who's viewing this, you're going to get this other thing because obviously you can't be part of the live experience. So that might be they send the meal, they might send the swag, you might get some sort of like special discount for the product or service so that at least you get some sort of benefit, not for sitting in front of your computer.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be fascinating to see how it all kind of it shakes out. But we all kind of have to
Hmm.
kind of figure it out and kind of grow and change. Uh, looking back on the stuff you've done now, what do you think you'd probably tell 25-year-old Jeremiah?
Oh God, stop messing up. I suppose every mistake that I made along the way has taught me write them down, but I made an excessive amount of mistakes. Yeah, I think it's a human thing to just always, look back at mistakes and say, "Shit, I shouldn't have done that." And it's part of the human condition. Of course, you tell your kids don't do that, and of course, my dad told me not to do a bunch of things, which I did anyway. So it is, and I end up doing it. I ended up creating those mistakes on my own. So it is part of the human condition. So um, it's, I suppose, one lesson that I learned at one company is I was trying to evangelize a new change in the way that they went into marketing, is that the difference between an evangelist and a leader is a leader actually has followers. And what that means is I was trying to push an organization, push, push, push. And instead I should have pulled, right, and gotten the whole organization to move forward together. And this really taught me a lesson on how to make a movement move forward within an organization rather than being just an evangelist, which can just annoy people after a while. So that was one critical lesson, and to accelerate things in my career.
That's a fascinating distinction, and thank you. Like, you think you're the first person that I think of on the show who's sort of shown that distinction, because I think a lot of times we hear a lot about these tech evangelists, marketing evangelists who just sort of, and you realize that, like, yeah, they're sort of like the televangelists on TV. Like, they are just speaking to the crowd. They're speaking
That's
to the
right.
crowd.
Or trying to do shock and awe to people that are not ready for them. And that's not going to convince and convert them.
Yeah, but when you lead and people see that you're leading, they want to, they will walk through fire for you. Um,
Exactly.
and that's,
Exactly. And I noticed that in you too, in the way that you described your products and what you were doing, even helping your clients understand business growth and growing a market versus, pounding them over the head on what they're not doing right. That is also a demonstration of leadership versus evangelism or shaming.
yeah. And I think, look, we're in this really very unusual climate where, like, oh, we're in the middle of a pandemic, we're in the middle of a racial pandemic, we're in an
Hmm.
election
Hmm.
year.
Hmm.
And, I get asked this pretty quickly. They go, oh, well, Laura, how do we, and I'm like, okay, well, everything's a business case. And, we can all sort of figure out things from a business side of the universe. And when you think of it that way, and infuse, humanity, authenticity, and inclusivity, and respecting people, you're gonna get far, far further than just, oh my gosh, why didn't you do this
Shaming
all
them.
these years? Like, why? Like, what's the point? Like, that's just, no one wants to be yelled at. No one wants to feel shame about things. Like, we all have a conscience,
That's
and
right. Show them the opportunity for growth.
you can do so much more. Like, there's, like, you're leaving all this money on the table by not just sort of shifting your thinking about things, and that's kind of the key around how you can do anything and learn from anything. uh it's funny
We are
because, like,
aligned.
you have to be aligned. And it's interesting because, so obviously, we both love Spartan Race.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. But I miss
And
Spartan Race. I had numerous Spartan
so,
races planned for this year. They're gone.
same, and same. But it's interesting because, it was fascinating that, like, to learn that you were a Spartan, you were a Spartan, and I'm a Spartan, because I think it's also something about, again, the community aspects of what you can do when you're with a bunch of strangers going towards a common goal of completing something. And that's, you know similar to how you sort of have to get things done from a work side of the universe. You're all kind of coming together, and then this common goal is to be successful, and then when you do it, it crushes. You're less dirty unless you're doing a Spartan race, but the same premise kind of applies.
For those that don't know, I'm assuming you do know, but it's a military style obstacle course, and there's challenges, and I love it because it's a great metaphor for life. And you're tested in every way. Regardless of your body type. If you're tall, you're going to struggle to go under the low things. If you are short, you're going to struggle reaching over an 8-foot wall. Everybody struggles in a different way. They've done a great job of planning the obstacles, so you're stretched in every particular way. If you happen to be physically elite, then you go compete against the elites, and then that's your
That's your,
benchmark too.
that's your
Yeah,
jam.
yeah. So everybody runs their own race in a different way, and there's different levels, different types of races, and I fell in love with it. And so I think it's a wonderful, really wonderful experience, and I just feel so elated. But I don't like to do it alone. Usually, I want to do it with other people. That's part of that human condition, that tribe. And there's something really primal, obviously, with doing it, right? Getting all muddy because we're stuck behind these cubicle walls and right now laptops, and we're missing that really tribal thing to go out and run with our pack and our tribe, and to go accomplish and have those wins together, and the touching and the physical aspect of it, and smelling the dirt, getting dirt in your hair. This is like the core thing that we were always built for, and I think they really have understood that and made it wonderful.
Yeah, I have to say, like, you're so right about the idea of it, like, sort of being a sort of primal, but also this really unique feeling of community that comes
Yes.
from doing a Spartan race. And, you know, I am one of those people who does not like to get dirty, is not an outdoors person, and does not like to get dirty. Did I say that already? Yes. Because I'm emphasizing that. Like, I like my idea of vacation is a beach. The idea of
Uh-huh, I'm
hiking
with
and
you.
it
And you
is
live in
not,
this and you live in New York, right?
yeah, like,
It's like
no,
urban
concrete
central.
jungle. Like, none of that. Um, but obviously Spartan is a client, full disclosure.
Uh-huh.
And I got to do the race. And it started by myself, but then I immediately made this like really awesome family who sort of adopted me. And I remember thinking like, how did I get myself into this? But oh my God, I can't, I so want to finish this. And I think, it's one of those things where it sort of helps test your limits. And I think we all think that we're all a lot stronger than we actually think we are. And when you get to be in
Yes.
those situations that give you a chance to really stretch who you are, the better off you can be. And I think,
100%.
again, as is such a metaphor for business. Like, once you stretch and put yourself in a little bit more of an uncomfortable position, you can go so much further, and you can think about things a little bit further, and by giving yourself those sort of cues. And
For
yeah,
sure.
I can't wait to get back out
As
and
soon as
do
the
one.
vaccines emerge, I will be signing up for a trifecta, which I swore never to do again because the final part of it is very challenging. But I mean, I started off with the easy race. I did a few of those, and then I just grew and grew. And there's a saying amongst the Spartan community, which applies to business as well in life, frankly, is when you fail an obstacle, you have to do 30 burpees. And
Hmm.
and the saying is, now you know what you need to work on. That's the saying.
Absolutely.
So it's like it gives you the self-awareness where you need self-growth. And I couldn't pull myself over a wall when I first started that journey about 4 years ago, and now I worked at it. I started doing pull-ups and chin-ups and lost weight, and now I can. And I couldn't do it before, and so I couldn't climb the rope, the 20-foot rope, and for the same reasons I just said. And then I got trained and I did all those things I just talked about. Now I can. So it taught me to overcome the things that I never thought I could do as a middle-aged businessman.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, again, I'd never climbed anything in my life, Jeremiah. Ever in my life, I have never climbed.
Mm.
I've never hiked, and my first race was a super,
Oh, that's
which
for
I
those
had
that
not
don't know,
trained
that's 10 to
for.
12 miles and at least 20 obstacles or 18 obstacles or something like that. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's 24 obstacles. It took
Oh,
three
wow.
hours and 43 minutes, burned into my
Which is
brain.
really fast. I was much longer. You go.
So, like, I don't know how. Probably because like, just get me out of here. But by the end, I remember. Here's the thing that blew my mind. At the end, where I'm like, I've just gone through the water thing where you go under,
Mhm.
like, under the water, and
The
then
dunk wall.
dunk wall. Yeah. And I'm like soaking wet, and like there's like the slippery walls, the last thing to do, and I'm like, there's no way I'm climbing this, but let me just sort of try. And then I get all the way to the top, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm actually gonna do this. And I freaked the frick out. Because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna fall. And even though I'm at the top of the wall, and so I end up sliding down very gently, and I'm like, oh damn it. And so get through, get my banana and my fit aid. And then I'm
Uh-huh,
like,
uh-huh.
I'm now just
And
again
your shirt
because
and your
like,
medal.
yeah, of course got my medal, and I was very excited.
Way
And so
to go.
But yeah, I was like, okay, I have to make sure I do this again because now I have to get over that wall again. Because if my first race, when I'm like half dead, I've never done this before, I have never trained, and I got all the way to this, and I almost got to the top of this without
You
training,
can't quit.
I
You
can't
can't
quit.
quit. And
Like,
plus, if
just
you get to the top, you still got to get down.
yeah. So no, I will not slide down that side of the wall again. I will like complete the mission and go through it again.
I
And
see
I
that.
think that's I honestly think, I think back about that day a lot, as this year has just been such a test
Mm,
resiliency. And remember, like, yeah,
mm,
I literally climbed an A-frame. I've never done that before. So what
way
am
to
I worried
go.
about, like, not having to do live events anymore? I will figure this out. And you will find a way. And, as we're in this kind of wackadoodle time, like, how are you sort of navigating? Like, what's Jeremiah's self-care at this point?
Thank you. I was already disciplined with taking care of my body because I started that journey when I was going through my midlife crisis, and Spartan was part of that. Rebirth by fire. And so I already had a program, and I joined a CrossFit gym so I could become a better Spartan. So I already had that already in me. So I am doing cross fitness type of stuff already. And if the gym is locked out because of the quarantine, then I do calisthenics, 100, 200 push-ups, or 100 pull-ups, or 100 burpees for time, or a run. Or I'll do the online, CrossFit class, and then really manage a tight diet. I do intermittent fasting, depending on my goals, at minimum 12 hours to 22, depending if I'm trying to cut. And then, but most importantly, um, is sleep, and that is critical because that's so key for you to recover, especially if you're tearing your muscles so they can grow, but also for immunity and during this stressful time. So the order for me, and it took me many years to understand it, the order for me and many other wellness professionals agree with this, is it's sleep, diet, then fitness. And so that's kind of like how I really want to plot those things
Sleep, diet, and fitness.
in that
So
order.
very key. In that order. I'm writing this down and I will probably follow.
I'll
Because I
skip a
mean,
workout if I didn't get good sleep, Laura, because I'm just going to do a junky workout.
yeah, I'll just
You know,
suck. No, I totally
I'll
get
just
it.
suck. Yeah.
And then last question for you. Do you
Yes.
have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Well, I would love to give, the knowledge that I have, and I take questions and happy to respond to anything in the areas that we're doing research, and we share our reports and our infographics online. So I want to give as much as I can. I don't have any asks at this time. I'm just always ingesting knowledge. So I just invite you to join me on a network, a social network, so we can build a relationship.
Awesome. Jeremiah, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Honors
You're one
mine.
of, yeah, you're just, a wonderful, delightful, brilliant guy. And I'm so glad. It's funny that it took a pandemic for us to actually finally get to know each other, but
We
I'm
have a lot
eminently
of things in
grateful.
common. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it just took a pandemic, these things. But it's been such a delight to get to know you and have you on the show. Has just been so wonderful. Thank you so very much. Take Jeremiah up on his offer. Follow him on all of the channels, which I'll throw in the show notes. Because he's a great guy to converse with and just enjoy. So, and with that, that is our show.